What's up everybody, Jamison Redding here with the Road Trip Angler. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the NRS Approach 138. NRS is no stranger to making these style boats, these rafts, right? They've been making whitewater rafts for a very long time. They've been making fishing rafts for a very long time, and I've had the chance to review several of their boats like the Slipstream, the Approach 120, and a couple of their kayaks as well. And this is an extension of that Approach lineup where you have the 120 that I've tested before, which is a two-person. This is a three-person version of that. And before I jump into everything else, I just want to quickly go over what they say about the raft on their website. An ultra lightweight watercraft that redefines accessibility. The Approach 138 gives up to 3 anglers the opportunity to stalk fish others can't. Whether you're hiking into a wilderness river or hopping the guardrails into roadside streams, the Approach 138 is as easy to transport as it is to float skinny waters. We were actually invited out to Idaho where NRS is headquartered, and we're here in Moscow with the Approach 138. For the last week, we have been fishing out of this boat in both some mild whitewater. This is like fishing in a water park. And flat water, so we've really had the opportunity to test this boat out. Before we jump into the specs of the boat and I go through all the things, my thoughts about how it performed on the water and the features, I want to say that I'm also going to be doing a comparison video between this boat and the Flycraft Guide. So be sure to check the channel out. I've got a review of the Flycraft Guide. I'll be doing a side-by-side comparison because these boats are very similar in size and kind of fit that same category. And I've got this full review here of the NRS Approach 138. To start with, the boat weighs 89 pounds. With the frame and everything, you're at 220 pounds. So 131 pounds on the frame, 89 pounds is the actual boat. It's 13 feet, 8 inches long. That's where the 138 comes in the name, and it's 59 inches wide. The tubes are actually diminishing, so you go from 16.5 inches in diameter to 12 inches. The bow and stern kick are about 22 inches, so that's the rocker that the boat has. And it has 4 air chambers, which is nice because if you do accidentally puncture one of those chambers, you've still got 3 more that are gonna hold up. And as I've mentioned in all my inflatable reviews, that's just not something that happens that often, and it's really easy to repair when it does, and usually it's a really slow leak from something like a fish fin. But this boat is pretty durable. We'll get into that in a minute. The material is actually a PVC construction, and it is self-belling as well, and it has a 2000 denier or 52 ounce thickness to it. One of the other things that this boat has is wear patches that we'll see throughout. We'll get into that a bit more in the features. And throughout the boat, you're gonna find 6 D-rings and 6 grab handles. The middle of the boat, or the compartment area, is 26 inches wide. It does come with a repair kit, and the warranty is 5 years if you're buying it retail. If you're a commercial outfit, say a guide service, it's 3 years because they know you're gonna be using the boat a lot harder than you would if you're buying it as an individual. Before we jump in to the bow to stern features, I wanna quickly just go over a few of the product details about this boat that they have listed actually here on their site as well. The Approach 138 is the largest of the Approach rafts, but it has an ultra lightweight design so that it makes it easier to transport. It can actually fit securely in the beds of most pickup trucks between those wheel wells. And that's where the width comes in. It's purpose built for stealth, so the whole boat is designed to be very quiet and be able to be very nimble. It has smaller tubes with a thick drop stitch floor, and we'll go through that in a minute, but that gives you a lot of rigidity in the bottom of the boat and makes it really comfortable to stand on as well. It's built just like their whitewater boats or their whitewater rafts, so it has all that structure, those welded seams and everything, so that it holds up really well even in rough conditions. There's also some standard features that the boat comes with, and then there's a rower's package, which is an additional package that you can purchase separately. But in that rower's package, you're gonna get a few more things. So we're gonna go over what you get in the standard package, which comes in at $6,395, and what you get in that rower's package that adds $630 to that price. As I mentioned, the boat is available in that one package, but you can purchase that rower's package and get those extras. I want to talk about what's in the box in the standard package. You're going to get the adjustable slot rail frame, 2 Approach XL dry box storages. You'll get the bow angler molded thigh hook that you see here, stern angler high back padded seat, stern angler molded thigh hook, adjustable oar mounts, internal anchor system with cam lock anchor lock, 3/8 inch anchor line, dual bi-directional rod holder, we'll show you that in a minute, a motor mount that comes standard, which I think is awesome, 6-foot HD tie down straps, that's what allows you to tie the frame down to the raft itself, and the super 2 horsepower pump, so that's your hand pump to pump this bad boy up. You also get that patch kit as well. Now, when you go to the rowers package, what you're getting in addition, and these things are going to be needed, so I'd recommend, unless you already have them or you have specific things that you want to use, you can purchase this rowers package. You get the 2-to-1 anchor assist pulley. We'll take a look at that because we do have it outfitted on the boat. You'll get a 24-pound Torqeedo anchor. You'll get Advantage 8-foot oar shafts, so obviously 2 of those, and 2 of the Helix oar blades. Molded oar sleeves and oar rights, which if you're new to rowing, the oar rights can help you keep those oars in the right place. I personally like to leave them off just so that I can index and I can feather those oars as I'm rowing through the water. But let's jump into all these features as we go from bow to stern. So I already mentioned that we have the molded thigh hook. There's some cup holders up here and a big tray just to keep your gear organized, keep some flies in there or a fly box in there. And that was really nice while we were out on the water. As you come down, you see that's connected to the frame. The frame goes all the way around the entire boat, but this is also your rod tubes that protect those rod tips when they're stowed. You got a really nice grab handle up front and the D-ring. You can actually strap that frame down to the D-ring or use this as a connection point when you're hooking the boat up or pulling the boat up on the trailer. As we go through the boat, you're gonna see all these welded seams, and that's what really gives this boat its durability. In addition to that, there's added layers of material anywhere that the frame is gonna be touching the boat, and it's doubled up in certain places where you have those like heavier traction or heavier points where the frame touches. That's also throughout the bottom of the boat. So we have a double layer on both tubes all the way down, but then another layer in the 4 corners, if you will, that protrude down the most in the boat. So they really thought about keeping this boat super durable when it's out on the water. As we move back into the forward seating area of the boat, you'll notice right away we've got a super comfortable seat, padded backrest, padded butt in the seat as well, but it's on top of one of my favorite features that the Approach series all have, and that's these dry boxes. These things are awesome for gear. It keeps it tucked away, out of the way, less things for fly line to snag. As everyone knows, if there's something that a line can catch, it will find it and catch it. But you can quickly open these boxes up and you have plenty of storage inside, which is really nice. On both sides of the box, you also have these little trays, which are great just for staging gear that you need to get to quickly throughout the day. You'll also see that the floor of the boat has this nice EVA pad on top of it. Again, this is added durability, but it also makes it nice to stand on. It's a little bit more cushioned. And if you're dropping things in the boat, it just deadens the sound a lot, which isn't a big deal on an inflatable because it's not like a fiberglass boat would be or a metal boat anyway, but it's just really nice having that extra layer of material there for comfort and to make it a little more stealthy. Inside those trays, you also have some of that EVA material that is nice to be able to stage those flies out if you're letting them dry throughout the day. And again, as I mentioned, you have these rod tubes. So we'll move on back into the rowers area and I'll be able to dive into a lot more going on with these rod tubes and what you have going on where the rower sits. Another one of the things that's really unique about the NRS Approach series is that it's all put together with this extruded track on both sides, which makes everything really infinitely adjustable. I can slide all the seats back and forth. I can take the front seat off, move the back seat forward, make this a 2-person raft, really however I want to set it up. And I can also add some accessories like we did on this chute with camera mounts, places to hook or store our net, and even cup holders. So there's a lot of options of things you can add to this track, but I really like how that building foundation of that track allows for everything to move and slide around. As we move back and we take a look at these rod tubes, basically this goes all the way around the boat. You have a big open cutout here in the cockpit area with forward and aft rubber pieces here where your reel would sit. So your rod butt would slide in, your reel would sit there, and then you bungee this over your reel. The rods can either face forward with your rod tip going to the bow, or they can turn and your rod tip can go to the stern. So your rear seated angler can access the rod from the stern, and your forward facing angler can have their rod turned so that it's easy for them to get to as well. So really thought out there. You can store 2 rods. We actually carried more than 2 rods in these tubes, but 2 rods is going to be nice and clean. They're not going to get tangled up at all. You see that we have the oar mounts here, and those also are infinitely adjustable. So when you're trying to figure out the right setup as far as how far forward or aft your seat needs to be, how far your oars need to be away from your body, you can really dial that in infinitely. One of the big things that I like about this raft that I haven't seen in some of the other rafts in its category is a foot brace. When you're really trying to get down and row hard, especially if you're in swift moving water and there's an obstacle coming up that you need to avoid, having that foot brace is really going to help you engage your core and be able to get after it with those sticks. As we move back to the seat here, it's much the same as what we had in the front. Now this particular boat is set up with a box where the rear angler could open it easily from the rear seat. I have mine set up the other way, so mine opens from the cockpit area. And again, that's just the diversity of being able to swap that around with the fact that it's mounted on those tracks. Again, the same type of seat here. We've got cushion seat, back and butt, and that dry box underneath with the 2 storage trays on the side, exactly like we had in the forward seat. The other thing I want to touch on in this area is this is where your anchor line management system is. It's ran inside the frame, so it's very clean. You have access to your anchor rope here from the rower's seat, and you have a pulley to be able to help you pull that anchor with a cleat that locks in, so it's quickly released, and you can also unrelease it very easily and quickly. This is also where you have access to those 4 chambers. So you've got one of the valves on this side of the boat, and on the right-hand side of the boat, if you're sitting in the seat or the starboard side, you've got 2 more valves in the tubes, and then 1 in the floor of the boat. The floor of the boat is that drop stitch technology, so you're able to take that to a much higher PSI, around 8 PSI, where the tubes are only want to go up to about 3 PSI. And when you get up around 8 or so, that's when you're really going to get that rigid floor, and you're able to do that with that drop stitch, and it holds the shape of the tube so it doesn't get deformed or anything, and it gives you that really rigid platform to stand on. As I mentioned, you have 6 handles throughout the boat, so here on either side of the boat is where you'll see 2 more of those handles and 2 more of those D-rings, or 6 of those as well, and that's what straps the frame down to the actual boat. You can do that in the bow, the stern, and then 2 on each side. As we move back behind that rower seat, the first thing you're going to see is that rear thigh hook for the rear angler, and it's also adjustable forward and aft on these tubes. And the nice thing about that, I mentioned that that center box on my boat was turned around so that I could open it from the cockpit area, but by doing that you may want to adjust where this thigh hook is so that you can get that box fully open. If you want the thigh hook box closer to the rower, you may need to flip that box around. So you've got that ability to kind of pick and choose how you want your setup. You'll notice I have this little product from YakAttack here. This is to hold the net on the boat. We were using Rise landing nets. They fit perfect in here, and it really holds that net in place. And because we have that track, we can add that accessory, but this is not something that comes with the boat. We also have the rear handle here and the rear D-ring to strap the frame down. And you'll see we've got these little hooks on here. This is another accessory from NRS, which is nice if you're just trying to stow your oar down the side. You can lock your blade in here, and it keeps it from swinging in the current while you're maybe fighting or landing a fish. This is where the rear rubber padding is for if you want your rod tip to go to the bow and your rod and reel to be sitting here in the stern. And again, you've got the bungee to bungee over that and lock it in place. And you'll see too that we have that EVA padding throughout the entire boat. As we look at the rear seat, there is one major difference between it and the 2 forward seats, and that is that it's on a swivel, which is super nice for that rear angler to be able to move around and make casts no matter which direction the boat is facing. It's the same seat other than that, has the padded seat and the padded backrest, it is a bit higher, and it swivels as it's mounted on this bar that goes across the frame here. This particular approach is also optioned out with their gear rack that goes on the back. That is a new accessory that NRS is launching actually right now as I'm filming this video, and it'll be available for all the approach boats. But it was nice because we were able to put a cooler back there and keep our drinks cold, but also because most of the week we were fishing with 2 people in the boat and not using that 3rd seat, it gave us some counterweight on the stern to be able to level that boat out. So having that gear rack and the ability to move your gear around to level that boat out is really a nice option. The boat that I have at home, which is my brand new 138 approach, does not have this gear rack, so I'm keeping it open back here, and the reason is because I do run a motor off the back, but we'll go to the back and take a look at that motor mount. On the stern here, again, I've said this a couple of times, the frame goes all the way around the boat, so this is where your rod tips would be inside this frame on the stern of the boat. But this is also where they get that motor mount. So basically that's a nice plate here that allows you to hang a motor off the back. Now you can do a gas motor. I wouldn't recommend going anything above, say, a 3 horsepower gas motor back here, but I typically run it with a Torqeedo 903 or 1103 or the Torqeedo travel motor, which is a 3 horsepower equivalent electric motor. Now with this rack on here, I would have trouble mounting that motor. So I would either need to slide the rack forward a bit, which I can do, and then I can squeeze this motor on. But the rack does become kind of useless if you've got that tiller handle on the motor that you need to swing back and forth to steer. You could still keep a few things that were very low profile on the rack if you were gonna do that, but you wouldn't be able to do the cooler and the motor just because you need to be able to steer that motor with the tiller handle, and you could do that from the rear seat. That's also another great reason for that seat to swivel, is so that you can turn a little bit to the side and access that throttle. Beautiful little guy. Get her back. Now I want to talk about my own water experience with this boat. I put the one that I have at home together and got to spend a full day on the water with it, fishing for trout in some really small water. So very shallow creek, very shallow, narrow little chutes between rocks. And then I also got to spend 4 days on the St. Joe River here in Idaho, and then a day of flat water fishing on a lake here in Idaho. So I feel like I have really gotten to test this boat out a lot to be able to give you guys a good idea of what I think and how this boat handles. So I have my categories that I like to run through. And the first category I want to talk about is speed. Now, in these rafts, or when I'm talking about these rafts, they're really designed mostly and primarily to be a river fishing platform. So speed is not really the thing that you're looking for. You want to be able to row efficiently and maybe be quick when you're moving through that flat water, but you just really want it to handle moving down the river effectively. However, that being said, that day that we got to spend on flat water, even with some wind, we actually fished a 500-acre lake in a day. I mean, we used the wind to our advantage and let it run adrift, and then we slow rowed all the way back. Now, being able to add that motor on the stern really takes this up a notch, and it's gonna move the boat with that 3 horsepower electric motor, probably around 6 miles an hour, 5.5, 6 miles an hour, even with 3 people on the boat. So it's very efficient for what it is. I mean, it's a narrower boat, so you're able to cut through the water pretty well, and because it doesn't have super high turned up bow and stern or a ton of rocker on the bow and stern, you're getting more length out of those tubes on the water, which makes it a more efficient boat. So overall, I think the speed is right where it should be and right where I expect it to be in this boat, and you can totally take this out on flat water and cover quite a bit of water with the oars. Being able to put that motor on the back right off the bat without any accessory that you would need to add also really adds to the speed of the boat. Now, when it comes to maneuverability, which is the next category that I want to talk on or touch on, that's where the approach series, in my opinion, really shines, or any boat really in this size category. I like that it's narrow, so both maneuvering it on the and off the water are really nice with a boat this size, because I can put it in the bed of a pickup truck. I could easily haul it on a trailer, but I can get it down those narrow chutes, especially the ones that we have on some of the southeast rivers that I like to fish. We have those exposed boulders, and we're trying to find those chutes or those narrow passageways to get downriver and really be able to fish. So a wider raft is not always that great of an option on those rivers. I can get this in really shallow water, really tight water, and I can maneuver it very easily and very quickly. So again, overall for maneuverability, I think that's where this raft actually shines the most. The next thing I want to touch on is stability. The boat is rock solid stable, but I expected that because the 120 that I've tested in the past was very stable, and other rafts that I've tried out that are similar are also very stable. I mean, it's just the nature of inflatables really in general, but especially inflatable rafts. We were climbing all over this boat. In my experience in this boat so far, I've had 3 men all over 200 pounds in the boat and rowing on this trip. Mike and I were in the boat. Mike is not 200 pounds. He's a lot smaller than I am at 230 pounds, but we also had tons of gear. And a few times, Matt, who is standing behind the camera right now, also joined us and filmed from the boat. So multiple times we had 3 people in the boat on this trip, plus the cooler on the back, and tons of gear, and we were able to play musical chairs and really change position. And the whole time we were floating any of that swifter water or any of that white water, we felt very comfortable in the boat, and it really just ate up everything we threw at it. Now the white water was mild. I wouldn't say that we were really in anything, even maybe a class 2, but I could tell this boat would handle, with the right person rowing, up to a class 3 with no issue. Stability's just there. It is rock solid stable. You can literally walk the gunnels or walk around the frame on this boat, move around, and you're gonna feel very comfortable. Locked and loaded. I stood up almost the entire time that I was fishing, the whole way down the river, even in wave trains, and just had my thighs locked in and felt very, very comfortable in this boat. Durability is always something that gets brought up when it comes to inflatable watercraft. People have been rowing this style boat made of this style material in really extreme whitewater for years and years and years. When it comes to fishing, I think people worry about fish hooks. I've actually tried this. It's very hard to penetrate one of these boats with a fish hook unless you do it with a set of pliers. So just missing a hook set or slamming into the side of the boat with a fish hook is never really an issue. Also, dragging it across rocks and things isn't really an issue. The only thing I've ever had any issue on any inflatable with has been fish fins, especially when we're talking about sunfish or certain types of saltwater species that have those really spiny fish fins, and they're very needle sharp and very small, and you might get a small leak. Again, it's very easy to repair. You have that repair kit and you can take care of it even while you're out on the water. But overall, just normal fishing out of these boats, I've actually never had an issue. I've only gotten a fish fin poke in one boat, and it wasn't even an NRS boat that happened to, and I was able to fix it very quick. The added frame work all the way around this boat and the added extra layers of material in those wear points on the bottom of the boat and around the top of the boat where the frame sits, and even on the sides of the boat, are gonna really make this boat last you a very, very long time. And even that EVA padding that's on the floor of the boat just adds to that durability. The drop stitch flooring is a must. You can take that up to a higher PSI, and it's gonna handle that higher PSI very well. So overall, these rafts are built to last and handle the conditions that you're gonna be fishing in very well. So very durable product. When it comes to comfort, it's hard to beat these seats. They're very cushiony. They have back support. They're firm enough to support you even if you lean back in them. And they're there when you're trying to row. But also, there's a lot of other things that speak to the comfort of this boat. I'm more comfortable when I have places to put my gear and it's not scattered everywhere. So these boxes allow for that. I can be more organized. I really like the thigh hooks on some of the other boats that I've tested. Even from NRS, they have a metal thigh hook. I like being able to have a little bit wider support on the thigh hooks, and I like being able to have more storage options, which I think adds to the day on the water. I've got cup holders. I can have my gear laid out on the trays or in the tray on the thigh hooks. And so I'm just more comfortable to fish from this boat. One thing that I would love to see, and it's totally easy to add, you can actually purchase this as an adapter from really anywhere that has any type of seat like this, because it is standard, but you can also get it from NRS, is a swivel. I love that the back seat swivels. I wish the front seat did. Even though this box would prevent you from going all the way around, you could still just angle yourself a little bit and widen that area that you could fish comfortably, even if the boat isn't positioned perfectly, just being able to turn that slightly. I would even add it if I'm fishing calmer water to the rower seat, but the ability to lock that this is locked in place and straight is going to make you more efficient when you're needing to really get after it on those oars. So overall, the boat is very comfortable. We fished in it for 10 hours plus on a couple of the days that we were out there and really had no issue with comfort whatsoever. This probably isn't a word you're going to find in the dictionary, but one of the things I like to talk about is fishability. This is a fishing boat. You should be able to fish out of it very easily, very comfortably, and very confidently. And I think that they did a really good job of laying this out for the fly angler. The added tracks here also make it very adaptable to conventional fishing. The day that we were on flat water, Mike was actually in the bow and he was fly fishing the whole time. And from the seat, I was able to conventional fish. Now I could add some mounts to hold my rods a bit better, but I just laid them out here. It was calm water and I was able to keep them out of Mike's way. And I had my tackle down in these boxes. So you have the ability to rig out this boat. We're actually going to touch on that in just a second, but you have the ability to really make this a fishy platform. And right from the factory, it's already very fishy. Those thigh hooks again up front make it very comfortable for the bow angler. You have plenty of room there. I also fished from the stern of the boat a bit on this trip, and you have even more room back there. And I love that that rear seat is a bit elevated and that it swivels, making it more comfortable to fish even when you're sitting down. With the ability to add that cargo rack, I mean, you really can just set this boat up for whatever type of day on the water you're looking for. Now, I will say that it is primarily a river or flowing water boat, meaning if you want to get the most out of where this boat's going to shine, river fishing is where it's at, especially when you want to take at least one, maybe two other anglers with you. You know, and I'm excited about that because I like to take my dad with me, my brother-in-law, my family. We can all get out on the water in this boat. So from a fishability standpoint, if you're a river angler, this is going to be set up very nice. And with a few little things like adding the motor, you can also hit the flat water with this boat very easily as well. I touched on this a bit in the fishability segment, but rigging is another thing that comes into play here. And the rigging is top-notch on this. We have a coated frame all the way around. It is powder-coated gray. It looks nice, but it's going to be super durable. The oar locks are really durable. That extrusion, that track allows you to rig other things that you want, other accessories like we did for holding the net. You can adjust everything. So the rigging on it is just great. I love these boxes, the EVA pad, just in general, the way this boat is rigged and the quality of the rigging is top notch. Having the anchor line managed through the frame keeps less of that for getting snagged or tangled up in stuff. You've got pulley on here, pulley on the back, and you can get that added pulley in that rower's package that's going to take a lot of that weight out of it when you're lifting and stowing the anchor. The spin lock quick release on here as well is really nice. So you can just hit that, it's going to release the anchor, drop the anchor, but when you're pulling it up, you can re-engage it and it will lock so that you don't lose anything as you're pulling. Every time you make a pull, the anchor kind of locks itself back into place. So top-notch rigging throughout the boat, and you have the ability to really dial it in by rigging more stuff, utilizing that track system that you have on both sides. I want to talk about value next. Value is really subjective because I do believe that you get what you pay for, and you sometimes pay a pretty good amount of money for, you know, a good product. And that's where I feel like this comes in. I mean, I've compared other boats in this category, at least I've reviewed other boats in this category, and I will be doing a side-by-side comparison. And this is priced right where it should be in comparison to other boats in this category. So the boat comes in, as I mentioned, at $6,395 for an additional $700, which it's on sale right now for $630. You can get that rower's package. So when you add those two things together, you're just a touch over $7,000. If you pay that $700, right now it's discounted. But you can get in this boat for right around that $7,000 mark, which is a lot of money, but you're getting a lot of boat for that money. So I think if you're looking for something very durable and something that you're gonna have for a very long time that has a lot of functionality, It's priced right where it should be. And it's quite a bit cheaper than getting a drift boat. So if you're getting a decked out drift boat that would have a lot of the same features, you would spend quite a bit more money, maybe even double what this boat costs. Being able to take this boat down and stow it also adds to the value of it. I could take the frame off, I could pull all the parts and pieces off the frame and stow it for the winter if I'm not using it, or I can simply just deflate and stow the frame separately than the hull of the boat. So a lot of options there, and I think it's valued right where it should be, especially compared to other boats on the market that are similar in the same category. Before I give you my final thoughts, the last thing I want to talk about is who is this boat for? Because I am a firm believer that not every boat I review is for every person. You know, if you're not a river fisherman, if you're only fishing flat water, I think there's probably better options out there for you. But if you're fishing moving water, if you're someone that wants to take people with you out on the water, you got a couple of friends and you want to be able to move around, somebody row, hold the boat in position while someone else is able to fish, this is a great setup. It can also handle flat water, but I would recommend getting this primarily if you're a river angler that will sometimes be going to flat water versus a flat water angler that will sometimes be going to river fish, because you're just not taking advantage of what this boat is designed for if you're not a river angler. But if you are a river angler and you fish in rivers that are smaller, have some mild white water, say up to a class 3, and especially if you need maneuverability and you want to haul this in the bed of a pickup truck, then this might be the best option for you to get out on the water. Finally, real quick, just to touch on my final thoughts on the boat. I really love it overall. I think it's a great platform. I love to river fish. I'm used to doing it out of a kayak a lot, which is a solo thing unless you have a buddy with another kayak. But this has allowed me to take more people out on the water and share that water with them. On this trip, Mike was so kind to row me and allow me to get on the bow. And it is really nice and really easily you can hold position for that angler to have the best opportunity to connect with those fish from a boat like this. So I'm really impressed with it overall. I would love to see from the factory a swivel for the front seat. The only other thing I would complain about is in that rower's package, the anchor that it comes with is called a Torqeedo anchor. And I think this is something that you might deal with a lot of anchors, but that anchor does do like its name and tends to spin and sometimes gets that anchor rope spun up in the back. Now I've been told that down the road there may be some better options or some ways to solve some of those issues, but I personally like to go with my own anchor, just a solid piece of metal that doesn't seem to spin or get as tangled as much as that Torqeedo anchor, while that Torqeedo anchor does anchor the boat very well and hold it in place. That is my only other thing that I tend to change out. Now I get the rower's package because I like having the oars and I like everything else it comes with. The anchor is the one thing that I keep on deck and usually switch out for myself. So just keep that in mind and test it for yourself. You may not have the same experience that I have had. If you have any questions about this boat or any of the other boats, or if there's something you would like me to review or take a look at, please drop that in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the content, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. And as always, thanks for watching. That's going to be the spot right there, right by that, behind that tree. Big bubbles. That'll be a fish, maybe. Calling it.